Welcome to the Parsha Perspective. Each week, we will delve deep in a weekly Torah portion to find a practical and insightful way to enhance your daily life. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Rabbi Shalom Yamini, and each week we will look into the weekly Torah portion to find practical and insightful ways to enhance your daily life. This week's Parsha Perspective is in honor of our homeland, Eretz Yisroel. May Kadosh Baruch Hu, may God protect our brave soldiers, and may God return all the rest of the hostages immediately. This week's Parsha Perspective is in loving memory of Edward ben Efraim, Shlomo ben Edward, and Yirachmiel Daniel ben Gedalia. May their souls be uplifted, and may their memories be a blessing. The release date of this episode coincides with Tu B'Shvat, the new year for trees. And this falls on the 15th of Shvat, and on this day the trees transition from relying on water from the ground to drawing sustenance from within. In the same way, we are reminded that true growth comes not only from external circumstance, but from the strength within us. And just as a small seed can grow into a mighty, massive tree, so too every mitzvah, every act of kindness, every word of Torah has the power to shape generations. And may we continue to plant and nurture goodness and kindness in this world, leading us closer to the ultimate redemption. This week's Torah portion is Parshas Yisro, laying the foundations. Our Parsha has the Aseres HaDibros, the 10 Commandments, making it one of the most pivotal moments in Jewish history. For the first and only time, God himself spoke to the entire Jewish nation, confirming that we are his chosen people, and he has given us his divine commandments to live by. Yet before the Aseres HaDibros, before the 10 Commandments, the Parsha begins with a conversation between Moshe and his father-in-law Yisro. Just before the Jewish people receive the Torah, Yisro gives Moshe Rabbeinu some unsolicited advice. He tells Moshe that he must delegate leadership and appoint judges to help govern the nation. You shall seek from the nation, says Yisro to Moshe Rabbeinu, capable individuals who fear God, who will be honest and hate bribes. Yisro's words introduce a fundamental idea, that the Torah is not just a set of laws, it is a divine blueprint for a godly life. The Jewish people were not just preparing to receive commandments, they were preparing to become God's nation, bound to him through Torah and mitzvahs. But for the Torah to shape and sustain the Jewish nation, it had to be received with structure, clarity, and first and foremost, leadership. Before standing at Har Sinai, the Jewish nation needed to understand that Torah is not just about an individual connection to God. It's also about building a holy society, a sanctified community, a nation infused with justice, holiness, truth, and accountability. True Torah leadership is not about control, it is about enabling every Jew to deepen their relationship with God. And so by appointing judges and appointing leaders who are God-fearing, honest, and above corruption, the Jewish nation could uphold the Torah properly and serve as a light to the world. And with this foundation set, the Jewish people arrive at Mount Sinai, not just as individuals, but as a united nation preparing to enter into eternal covenant with God. 6 weeks after leaving Egypt, the Jewish nation arrive at the foot of Mount Sinai. Moshe Rabbeinu instructs them to purify themselves for 3 days in preparation for the giving of the Torah. They were commanded not to approach or touch the mountain, for it is infused with holiness and purity. Only Moshe and Aaron were permitted to ascend Har Sinai, Mount Sinai. On the third morning, after 3 days of preparation, an awe-inspiring scene unfolded. The piercing sound of the shofar grew louder and louder, as smoke, thunder, and lightning covered the top of Har Sinai, the top of Har and Mount Sinai. The earth trembled as God's essence, God himself, descended upon Har Sinai as the terrified and trembling Jewish people were gathered around its base. And at that moment, God proclaimed the Aseres HaDibros, the 10 Commandments, his voice echoing through the heavens. But the experience was so overwhelming, so utterly beyond human comprehension, that the Jewish nation could not withstand, and the divine words shook their very soul. Terrified and unable to bear its intensity, they turned to Moshe Rabbeinu and begged him to act as an intermediary between God and the Jewish people. They said the revelation was too much beyond their limits of their physical existence. Moshe Rabbeinu reassures the Jewish nation, "Do not fear, for God has come to you to test you. so that his awe may be upon you and you will not sin. This moment was not just about receiving laws, it was about forging an unbreakable bond, an eternal covenant between God and his people. A bris, a covenant that defines us till this very day. God proclaims the Aseres HaDibros, the 10 Commandments, and his voice echoing through the heavens. And he declares, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am the Lord your God who has taken you out of Egypt, affirming his direct role in our redemption. He commands the Jewish people not to worship any other gods, not to take his name, his holy name in vain, and to sanctify the Shabbos, keeping it holy. He instills the foundation of human relationships, commanding us to honor our father and mother. He forbade murder, adultery, and theft, establishing the sanctity of life and moral responsibility. He warned against bearing false witness, emphasizing the truth, justice, and the prohibition against coveting what belongs to another, teaching us that faith in God's plan is the key to happiness. The 10 Commandments, Aseres HaDibros, were not just a set of laws, they formed the foundation of morality, shaping our relationship with God and with one another. And from this moment, at Har Sinai, at Mount Sinai, until this very day, they remain the guiding force of Jewish life, binding us to our Creator, to our Father in heaven, with an eternal covenant, with an eternal bris that lasts till this very day. However, a question comes to mind. The first word of the Aseres HaDibros of the 10 Commandments is Anochi, I, as in Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am the Lord your God. And according to many opinions, this word originates in the ancient Egyptian language. But why would God choose an Egyptian word to begin the most defining moment in Jewish history? The only time he has spoken to the entire nation at once. Why would God introduce himself using a term that isn't entirely within the holy tongue, the holy language, Lashon HaKodesh? Of all the words to begin his bris, his covenant with the newly freed Jewish people, why does God choose to use the word Anochi to begin his relationship with the Jewish nation? The Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rav Menachem Mendel Schneerson, gives such a deep answer that I think it warrants skipping this simple explanation. He asks how the first word of the Aseres HaDibros, Anochi, can be the first word spoken by God at Mount Sinai, be the defining moment of divine revelation come from a language of exile. And the Rebbe explains that if there ever was a word to embody the entirety of the Torah, it would be Anochi. It would be the word stemming from the ancient Egyptian words. Rav Sadia Gaon, the holy, famous Rav Sadia Gaon from the time of the Gaonim, explains that the 10 Commandments are not just a collection of laws, they contain within it all 613 commandments. There are 620 letters in the Aseres HaDibros in the 10 Commandments, corresponding to the 613 commandments from the Torah, as well as the 7 rabbinical commandments, forming the completion of the foundation of the Torah. But the Rebbe takes this a step further. Not only is the 10 Commandments encompassing the entire Torah, but the first word, Anochi, the first word that comes from the ancient Egyptian language, contains it all. The Talmud in Shabbos reveals that Anochi is an acronym for Ananashi Ksavis Yahavis. I myself have written and given the Torah. God did not just give the commandments, he embedded his very essence into every single word. And the first word of revelation, Anochi, is not just an introduction, it carries within it the entirety of the Torah and the deepest truth of our connection to God. But this leads to a deeper question. If Anochi holds the essence, then why does its origins originate in ancient Egypt? Why would God introduce himself to the newly redeemed Jewish people in the language of their oppressors? And the answer lies in the very purpose of the giving of the Torah, of Matan Torah. God was not merely giving the Jewish people laws, he was revealing himself to them. He was forging an eternal bond, showing them that their journey out of Egypt was not about physical freedom, but about becoming his nation. And how does one speak to a newly freed people? In the language they know in ancient Egyptian. But there's something even deeper at play. The Egypt that is being talked about was more than just a physical bondage, it was a spiritual exile. A land that desired to enslave the body but erase the soul. And yet, God takes the word from Egypt, a word from the very depth of their suffering, and transforms it into the opening word of his divine redemption, of his divine revelation. This essence of the Jewish people is the secret of our existence. God is not only found in the holiness, He is present even in the darkest moments. He's not only with us in Eretz Yisroel, in the land of Israel, as we are redeemed with the temples, but He's with us in Egypt. He's not only with us in the times of redemption, He's there with us in exile as well, like we have today. And even in moments where His presence feels hidden, He is there guiding us towards the redemption, guiding us towards His revelation. This is why Anochi was the perfect word to begin the 10 Commandments, the Aseres HaDibros. It is a message that transcends language. It is a declaration that God's essence is everywhere. And the Rebbe explains that God does not ask us to serve Him and to believe in Him solely based on intellect. Torah is meant to be understood, but our connection to God must surpass logic. There's a level of faith that comes from knowledge, but then there's a deeper level of faith that defies reason. Faith begins where logic ends. And this has been the secret of Jewish survival. There's no rational explanation for how the Jewish people continue to exist. Every empire that desired to destroy us has fallen, yet we remain. We should not exist, and yet we thrive. Why? Because our connection to God is not based, bound, and through logic. It is bound by His essence, and just as His essence is embedded in Anochi, in Anonafshi Ksavis Yahavis, in that word, so too His essence is embedded within us. And this lesson is so connected to Tu B'Shvat, the new year of trees. Tu B'Shvat represents the cycle of renewal, growth, and a commitment to that growth. A tree begins as a small hidden seed buried beneath the soil. And at first it seems insignificant, unseen, with no visible impact. But with time it grows into something unshakable. Its branches expand, its roots deepen, its fruits nourish generations. The Jewish people are the same. We've been tested, buried beneath the weight of exile and persecution, and yet like seeds we continue to grow against all odds. And just as a seed contains with it the potential for something far greater, far deeper, so does every mitzvah, every act of kindness, every moment of learning Torah. And even when we don't see the immediate results, we trust the process. We know that every mitzvah, like every planted seed, brings us one step closer to the coming of Mashiach with the ultimate redemption. In our daily life, it is imperative that we understand that anything truly lasting is built through persistence. If we want to create something meaningful, something that will stand the test of time, we must continue forward even when progress seems slow or unseen. A seed does not become a towering tree overnight, yet beneath the surface, its roots deepen. Its strength builds and preparing for the moment that it finally breaks through. Every action, every moment of effort shapes our future. Even when the results feel and seem distant, they are unfolding in ways we may not even perceive. Even if we remain committed, we must continue investing in what's right, and our efforts will bear fruit. And in time, we will see that nothing was wasted, and we will reap what we have sown. There is a powerful quote that I once read. The moment you stop measuring effort by what it costs and start measuring by what it builds, you will see that nothing has been wasted. Every step was laying the foundation. Have a great weekend and good Shabbos and happy Tu B'Shvat. Thank you for tuning in to the Parsha Perspective. Check out our website, theparshaperspective.com. Send thoughts and comments to theparshaperspective@gmail.com. Till next time, thanks for listening.